Hi, Michael. No, I'm not. I'm one of the presenters. I thought we had to be on at 11:30.
Oh,
Sorry, my internet is not strong right now. I can't hear you.
Amy C is supposed to be.
Okay, sorry, I cut out again.
Jamie?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm gonna make you moderator of this, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you should be good. You need to let people in as they come, okay?
Okay, got it.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Well, we're waiting
Hello.
on a couple more jurors, so we'll just wait a few more minutes. I see Karen's here, I see Annie's here, so we'll get started soon. Hi there, Karen.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing?
Oh, good. We had a great day yesterday. We're ready for some more today. You guys are going to see some great work. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice seeing you again. How many are we looking at? How many works? 5, right?
So 5, yeah. So you and Annie and Benjamin Ball and Olivier Touraine are in this section, and you'll see 3 from our section from my students, and then you all, the jury, the critics, will stay here, and Andre Lucher's group will come in next, and you'll see 2 of Andre's, and then Karen, I think you actually are moving to another room after
Yeah, this
2 p.m.
afternoon I'm also in another room, right?
Yeah, and I
Exactly.
can send you that information before you go if you'd like, if you need me to.
Yeah, I think Sarah sent me everything again as well, so I think I should be okay.
Okay.
I'm impressed about your management of this.
I know we're all live on YouTube too, which is kind of a
That's incredible.
Hi Olivier, how are you?
Hello, sorry for yesterday. That
No
was
problem.
I just swapped. That was the commencement at USC. And I don't know, I decided that it should be otherwise.
Okay.
So anyway, sorry about that, and happy to join
No
you.
problem. We've
Hi,
got you
Karen.
now.
Olivier, long time no see. Hi, how are you?
You cannot, you could see me, I guess. Yeah, I'm good.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Olivia. I'm trying to get my thing working.
Annie, hi.
Hi, Amy.
Another long time no see.
Hi, Annie.
So,
Hi. I haven't seen
Annie.
you for a long time, Olivia. I've only
Yep.
seen Wendy a few days
I know,
ago.
we got to see each other in person. It was great. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We've
Almost
noticed
And
unusual
like
for
eat
real.
food and like do normal
Trader
things.
Joe's
Yeah,
zone.
we're doing normal things. We sat around the table.
Oh my God.
Everyone, I just put the concept board link. I'll do it again because I know once you log on, you're only seeing things anew. Hi, Benjamin. I'm gonna put
Hi,
Hi, Ben.
guys.
I'm gonna put the concept board link back in again to the chat. You don't necessarily have to go to concept board to see the work. What we'll do is we will the student will moderate, and I'll share the screen, so you'll be able to see the presentation as the student is going through it, and then we'll stop moderation, and then if you'd like to cruise around in concept board and you feel comfortable there, you can find that in the link. So we were just talking about before this, you all will see 3 students from our section, and then at 1:45, I think, we move out. You guys stay here, and you'll see 2 more from Andre Lucher's section. So this is the undergraduate Cal Poly Pomona 5th year senior project studio. Their capstone project, which is a comprehensive studio, as some of you know. And they have worked 15 weeks on this project since January, and they also had a oh, I'm gonna mute you, Olivier, just for now, because something with my voice. They had a research seminar in the fall where they did a code research, and they determined their site, and they determined their user group and their program for the most part, and did some code studies. So they had all of that determined already when they started in January. And then they've also taken a concurrent 1 unit systems integration course with the same studio faculty member that is their studio instructor, where they've determined and identified their structural system, their environmental systems and designs, and some of their passive strategies that they're using in the project. So just to give you a little bit of a lay of the land where they're at. They've really pretty much developed the project through to like a DD phase. There are 6 sections. There's myself, Andrea, who I mentioned, Emma Price, Sarah Lorenzen, Michael Fox, and Katrin Terstegen are the 6 senior project faculty this year for 21. And everyone's got a sort of different set of concerns and issues. Andrea will introduce those to you when he jumps in. Ours, our neighborhood of interest is right around on either side of the LA River, just north of Vernon, and just south of the Arts District. So on the east side of the river in that area is Boyle Heights and the big old Sears building that is to be redeveloped into housing and restaurants and retail. And on the other side of the river in that area, just to give you bearings, is sort of light industrial area that is changing quite quickly, and arts organizations are moving in. LA Dance Project has their new space over on that side of the river. And so the students are responding to that. Students are also responding to the LA River Master Plan, which is being reviewed for public comments right now. So they've looked into that. You're going to see 3 different sites today. The students had the choice between 9 sites that were vetted by the faculty so that they would have the right size project to work on for 15 weeks. And other than that, I think that's all the setup you need to see the work. For our students, I'd like to introduce our critics. We have a stellar jury this early afternoon. We have Annie Chu, who's the principal of Chu Gooding Architects. She has, and her firm with her partner Rick Gooding, has won multiple national awards and local awards with the AIA. She's FAIA. Annie taught for a very long time at Woodbury, but she is now concentrating full steam on the business. It's great to see you. Karen Lorman is an artist, urbanist, writer, and curator, joining us again this year. She joined us last year for senior project. She trained in architecture, art history, and scenic design at Aachen University, ETH, and University of the Arts in Zurich and TU Berlin. And she's at SciArc. Yes. Benjamin Ball is partner at Ball Noguez Studio, an integrated design and fabrication practice operating in a territory between architecture, art, and industrial design. And even if you don't know the Ball Noguez projects, you know them if you saw them. They are all over. They're everywhere. They're all over LA and nationally and internationally. So it's great to see you, Ben, here for reviews. Olivier joined us briefly yesterday at noon, and he teaches at USC. He has taught at other places like UCLA, Columbia University, Pratt Institute, and SciArc. He has his own practice in LA, and he has worked with Jean Nouvel, Rem Koolhaas, Renzo Piano, and more. Thanks so much, you guys, for being here. We will get started right away, like I mentioned, with Blake Burrows, who will be our first student presenter. But let me ask you if you have any questions for us or on the studio in general.
Not now.
Okay, great. So Blake, are you ready?
Here we go. Hello, everybody. How are you?
So you can start moderating, and then I will share once you get to the spot you're going to start at.
It's that moderation button, right? Let's see.
Yeah, the little, there you go.
Cool. All right, hello, everyone. My name is Blake, and this is my project. So my project is a, hybrid. It's half a brewery and half a art studio mixed together into one structure. As you can see in my first diagram, this is my concept diagram. So what is happening here is my main atrium space, which is
Can I
my
interrupt for a second? What we're seeing is Wendy's share screen. Unless we're
Are you
on
able-
concept board. I'm on concept board too, but what is being shared on Zoom right now is just Wendy's desktop.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's what I'm seeing as well.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I moved the. Sorry. Thank you. I moved it out of the way. Are you guys seeing concept board
There
now?
you go.
Yes.
Great.
Perfect. So as I was saying, this is my atrium space, which is the main distillery / brewery that is being extracted from my building, which is my studio gallery space. And it's I chose this because I wanted to create a space that is welcoming, that brings people together, specifically the community of Los Angeles. And I wanted to create an environment that's welcoming and warm. In my next diagram, I am showing the location. So what I have here is my location is on East 12th Street, which is in East Los Angeles. And it's on the corner of South Santa Fe Avenue. And other students chose another site, which is Rio Vista, which is just above it on East Olympic Boulevard. And I chose this site specifically because I wanted an art studio. And because of that, there's a lot of gallery spaces, such as the Barrett Gallery and the Nicodeme Gallery in Los Angeles. And also, there's a lot of other things going on there, such as the Barracks, which is a skate park. And it's mostly also just industrial and manufacturing buildings. So I wanted to add to it a little bit. And down here, I'm showing just a street view. I actually got this from Google Maps, and I put in my building and how it would actually be placed onto the site. And I put in a few vegetations, how the people would interact with the building, and just what I would imagine it to be looking like. And then here's just my zoning and coding section. So it's going to be a type 1B construction. The occupancy is A for the art studio and F for the brewery. It's about 43,582 square feet with a 40-foot tall building height. And the FAR is 3:1. And then here is my site plan. So I wanted to not just show my ground level, I wanted to show my roof level because I feel like that's what I kind of wanted to bring into the scene, was just that entertainment and just that welcoming sense of people just coming together. So what I have in my roof level is a few bars. I have 3 bars. I have some seating arrangements, which is being covered by these overhang coverages, which actually comes from my louvers that are on the side of my buildings. And they just continue over the building itself. And then also I have some planters, some vegetation, and on the ground level, I have a few parking spaces also outside of it. So this right here is 12th Street, and then this is South Santa Fe Avenue, and up here would be Olympic Boulevard. And then in here, I'm showing my massing diagram and what the programming would be. So I have my circulation, storage, art studios, distillery, my restrooms, galleries, seating space, my lobby, kitchen, and then the outdoor deck, which would be mostly my roof level, which is shown here. And then here I wanted to show my floor plans. So, and I also wanted to show my views just to give like an idea of what it would look like inside the building. So what you're seeing here is the lobby space looking into the gallery and the brewery. So the type of equipment I put into my brewery is like kettles, filters, fermenters, beer tanks, and so forth. And these are some equipments that you will need to create these beers for the brewery itself. And it kind of like, I looked up the process, and it kind of starts with the malting, the milling, the mashing, and then the boiling of the beer, and then the fermentation and storage. So it's a pretty big process. And also I wanted to show some of the artwork that I felt like would be beneficial. And I chose these art pieces, which were done by Tristan Eaton, who's an artist in Los Angeles and wordsmith. I chose these pieces of art and these artists because they have a good delivery. There's meaning behind their art. They wanted to make a difference with their artwork, and also there's color choices, which I really liked. And also in the back, you kind of see the hop plant, which kind of is the main idea of my design, which is this brewery. And then also in the second level, I'm showing mostly the kitchen where all the process for the food would be, and then there would be dining. This would be like a more formal setting for like dates or just little family events and birthdays and stuff. And in the view here, I'm showing what the main setting for the dining would look like and how the people would use that space. And then for my roof level, I kind of talked about it, but this is just for more entertainment, more casual events. There could be live music, people just having fun, enjoying drinking, and nightlife and such. And also here's a view of what it would look like. As you can see, I have these louvers that continue over the structure that create these overhangs and coverage for mostly the seating spaces. And then here are my two sections. What I'm showing here is mostly the distillery space, which is out of glass, which is in the middle right over here. And I wanted to have it continue all the way up above the structure, and it creates this space where natural light can come in. And I'm also showing the different equipment that is being used in the distillery. And then for my elevation, I'm showing different materials I'm using, such as concrete. The glass or the structure would be an steel frame, and then the louvers would be stainless steel, and then glass as well. And then also on my side elevation, which is the alleyway, which kind of brought my idea, or that's why I chose this site, because when we went to the site, it actually already had artwork and graffiti and stuff like that. I'm sure it's people did it just in the community and stuff, but I guess that kind of inspired me to do something like this. And what I have here is the hop plant, which is the main plant they use for beer and such. And then also I'm using wordsmith's art, which is kind of motivating. And I thought it would be a good way of using that space. And then from my section perspective and wall section, I'm just showing how the structure works. So it starts with my floor plates, which would be out of concrete. And then the columns would be out of steel with the beams, girders, and joists. And then I'm also showing how my louvers are and the duct systems here, which I wanted to be exposed, not just hidden. Because when I go to breweries and stuff like that, I feel like they're not hidden. They kind of are being shown within the structure itself in the building. And then here's just a simple structural diagram where my main structure has steel with my walls, circulation, my floor plates, and then the louvers all being extracted from the building itself. And then back to my concept. And here's some views. This is just a street view as well, my render, kind of showing the frontage of the building and the entrance with this overhang and the people using that in a nice way. And then here are my 4 other vignettes. So for the first one, I'm showing the entrance with, you can kind of see into the gallery. And then the next one is people looking in, outside, like they're in the building looking outside, and they could see the sculpture, the art, and also the equipment being used in the brewery. And then here's my studio space. And then this one, you're actually in the atrium, so you're on this bridge system that connects the 2 sides. And that is my project.
Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
Can we ask questions? Okay. Can you speak a little bit more about the demographics and the local culture? Who are the
Yeah.
people? Yeah.
So obviously Los Angeles is pretty diverse, but the population I got at least was about a little over 3 million people from the ages of 35 to 59. The race is mostly Hispanics. Was about 49%. The Asian community is about 11%, and then the Black community is about 9%. And the income that I got was about a little over 100,000 for income, but that's pretty much what I found from what I was researching.
Are you talking about the immediate area, like
Yeah,
within 10
yeah.
blocks of your site?
Oh no, this is like all of Los Angeles.
Okay. I think
Yeah.
you have just a mile up, there's maybe a lost opportunity to tap into what is the local condition and culture. In general, when you dig deeper into what is the problem you're trying to solve and what is the situation, you can get a little bit more specific about your response. So I think in general, I think it's a very good set of representation. You're kind of hitting all the marks. You got plan sections, exos, everything that your professor had required of you, you have fulfilled. But I think that what is missing in here is really the soul of the project. Is like, why is this program here? What does it do for the local community? And so I would just I'm going to let everyone speak about it, but I just have one element that I think that, again, is a signifier of your building, but at the same time needs a lot more digging into to actually activate the potential of that, and that's the louver. And the reason I ask about the local culture is, to try to find a way to connect to something. If you travel anywhere in Central or South America, you will see that the way that fenestration are dealt with in a lot of the parts of that country, that continent, they really deal with layers. There's a layer that is a shutter that closes certain things, and then there's a layer for ventilation, and on and on. And I think that if you look at louver as a device and think about it as a two-way controlling filter of porosity of what's going on inside the building, what's going on outside of the building, it is the most sort of I would say very pregnant piece of your building that could really speak and connect your architecture to the locale, and allow people to begin to understand the imprint of what's going on inside as well as what's going on outside as it affects the interior of the building. And so I'm going to leave it at that. I just think that there is something in regards to that, and I'll let other people speak.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I very much agree with what Annie was just pointing at, that I think the famous context is always something that we need to keep in mind when we are working in sort of inner city areas that are not totally well defined, or also on the brink of change, gentrification possibly, and things like that. And I think it's something, I don't think one needs to put that into a brief of a project, but I think it's everybody's, not only architects' job, but it's everybody's job to understand how a city really works and how society and culture and all these kinds of things work. That said, I think your first image, actually, your collage here, where you're putting your building into that context of the street, that's a very interesting visualization, because it is this ideal, right? And it is sort of this downtown, all of a sudden the street is very clean. I don't think we've seen as clean streets in over a year of COVID. It was, very perfect here all of a sudden. Palm trees that are not overgrown, a sidewalk that is super perfect, and and blue skies that we always have. And so there is a certain ideal, and I totally understand that. The first thing is always that we try to visualize project like that. I personally find it super interesting then to go further and actually also show building, as it ages, how, not only the day and night views that we typically do. I mean, it's also really a problem of architectural photography that, most new buildings are being photographed before anybody's ever moving in, and then we always see these glossy things and so on. And I would really like you all, I mean, the entire class, really to think about that in the, also in the future of your work and your professional life and so on. It's like, what is really going on when things are being built, and or also just visualized? What is the context that you're dropping your buildings in? Yeah. So on that note, I mean, that is sort of my job, because I'm way more interested in the urban context than in the exact design of a building. I think you've done a really beautiful building, and it's compelling. I've been sort of walking through it together with you as you were presenting it, and in that, that moment when you were going through the various floor plans and sections, I was wondering, how is the inside-outside connection? It's like, how much do I really see from the outside, from the context that we are talking about here? When I'm in this building, when I'm sitting on the roof terrace and so on, there's this whole thing about, roof terrace restaurants now and downtown and so on. It's a no-brainer because the weather is good. So what do I see, and what ambience do I find myself? Yeah, usually, I mean, downtown is often extremely loud. I was joking the other day with the people from Arc. You've probably seen that driving by there. They have these tents on the parking lot, and they really think that we can sit in these tents and teach, and it's actually incredibly loud. Yeah, so this thing doesn't really make sense, stuff like that. We forget about things like that. We also forget about far too hot sunlight sometimes, and so I would like to invite you in general to show more of that. Yeah, to show more of this context. In a way, one can also show sound. Yeah. The construction sites, there's dirt, there are I don't know what, there are cranes from construction sites, there are, all kinds of things. It doesn't look as perfect as we often show things. And I think then I would really be very intrigued to sit on that roof terrace, which I think is a very beautiful feature, also with, again, these sun shading louvers and so on. So yeah, I mean, I think all in all, I like this project. I wish for it would be a little bit dirtier. That you would have worked also a bit dirtier. Yeah, I'd like to see the graffiti that is being sprayed on the louvers. Yeah, and then all that kind of thing, because it's going to happen.
Do you think that would have been more like beneficial, I guess, to the culture of the community? Maybe show that graffiti, like what Annie was saying, like kind of bringing in that culture and just the lifestyle, at least in that location.
Yeah, I do think so.
I have a little bit of a, reaction towards that too. We assume that is a thing that is welcoming, but we don't know. And that's why I want you to dig deeper into, what the community really wants. Like, I don't even know if people drive here or they walk here, how much pedestrian traffic there is. I don't know which way the wind blows, how hot it is. What kind of vegetation do we really want to put in there? Is it really palm trees? So there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions about, my joke is always that architects don't know anything about furniture, and every time they furnish it, they just put Corbusier's, Grand Confort or Petit Confort in there. There's all these knee-jerk reactions I think we have to resist. And what is happening in this project is that you have not provided yourself any kind of thing that you have to resist. Like everything is too easy. The program is easy. You study the brewery and then that's it. Here's the block, you conform to all the zoning regulations and that's it. 3-story building. Most expedient way to build it, steel frame construction, corrugated deck, poured concrete floor. And then suddenly it becomes this really clean, it could be Midtown Manhattan for all you, like when you look at the gallery, the seamless, ceiling that is not pockmarked by all kinds of mechanical and lighting. And so as a kind of comprehensive studio, I want you to just go even further and be responsible for systems integration. How do you really provide this? I mean, is this the art environment that is good for the community, or are we talking about much more experimental space? Again, this is just my, not knowing enough about the culture and responding to the kind of whiteness of it all, So I think that, going forward, and there's no doubt, and I agree with Karen, that it's a beautiful project unto itself, but the thing is the beauty just something that came out of your mind, or is the beauty something that was mined from the actual situation? I encourage you and everyone to read Robert Irwin's Being in Circumstance, and I'll put it in chat in a bit, in which he talks about 4 kinds of public art, and of course his is the 4th kind, which is like you go and study the situation. He calls it situation. It's not just context. That's like not enough. You have to study everything from, what's going on the calendar on May 5th here, right? Or, what is the level of craft? I love this one. Level of craft of that existing situation, right? Swiss watch number 10, no one ever cares and it just happens number 1. Where do you situate your architecture relative to the context of the situation? So all this stuff an architect must know and must care about. So I want you to jump to the next level of being a connoisseur of everything that you're given before you start a project, and really define what is it that you're trying to solve before you jump into solving it. But other than that, like, I think you have really great skills, and I want you to just go to the next level.
Thank you, Annie. And thank you, Karen.
Well, I mean, I think there was a lot of interesting things said about the context. Undeniably, there is a little bit of a kind of Gattaca looking in your. It looks such a perfect world here, and I think you have this context, which is what it is, but it becomes a real opportunity, I think. And then there was the, do you take a risk in considering that it will be tagged, or that it should even start to be tagged from the beginning, which is probably kind of a given. I think you pass all the the test about what were the tutorial, what were the list of things that your instructor gave you. So you have the pass on that. I'm curious about what is the big idea. You were very descriptive. And I think what is the big idea? What is the concept? I started to see some when you described trying to make parallels between the roughness and the kind of sometimes overexposed process of making beer or processing beer in a brewery. And now it was somehow translating with your steel structure, your corrugated metal, your decking, your infill, the roughness of the concrete. I think there is something there that actually is kind of attempting to echo. And I mean, last comment is like, yeah, the fifth facade, I think it's definitely, we're in LA, so pretty much the fifth facade of the modern movement is pretty much our first facade as soon as we have a clear view and proper orientation. So there is something to develop on that. That actually the roof use is probably the part that, you know, if there is nothing else in the project would anyway would, you know, guide and drive to success in terms of how many people would be queuing there to go and enjoy a kind of panoramic experience.
I would wanted to just mention one thing. I don't think there is any culture in this area. Nobody lives here. This is a pretty much entirely industrial zone that has no culture, really. There aren't, in fact, the city of Vernon only has maybe 50 to 100 residents entirely. So I would like to hear, if you were to continue working on this, why this in this particular location. I'm kind of echoing some of the things that Annie mentioned. What is it that makes this project useful and appropriate for this context versus Santa Monica? Like right now, in the terms that you've used to describe the project, I don't get a sense of how it's different than this context is different than, say, Santa Monica or Hollywood or Philadelphia, for that matter. But I can tell you, my studio's in this neighborhood, and I can tell you it's entirely different. Like even the discussion of like what's the culture here is sort of off the mark a little bit, because there is no immediate residence, save a couple of artists that actually even could walk to this place or live this place. So it strikes me as an opportunity to think about this as a kind of for the time being, it's going to be a kind of destination. It's going to be a place that people are going to have to make a decision to drive to and or to, you know, shuttle to in public transit somehow. But to get there, and they're not going to have a lot of opportunities to do other things around it. You know, the neighbors are going to be cannabis cultivation, metal fabrication shops, sewing and cutting. And so it would be useful for your argument if you were to do a deeper dive into how this could serve that particular community. Maybe think about it as there is a community, but it's a community of people that are coming there to work and then they leave. They don't live there. So think about, you know, maybe this is a place that you know, is intended to keep people after work, or it's a place where people go for lunch, but if it's a place where people go for lunch, it's probably, you know, it's probably a little on the pricey side, because this is a very working class kind of jobs around there, below working class, sweatshop kind of jobs. So, you know, what does it mean to put something like this in that context? I don't think it's, and I haven't quite seen that yet. And I'd like to hear you talk about that, or like you to think about that going forward.
Okay, definitely.
All excellent comments. We have to move on. But Blake, thanks so much for presenting and leading us off this afternoon.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. So next up we have Caitlin Aguilar.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Caitlin.
First off, I just want to thank the jurors for taking the time and being here today. My name is Caitlin Aguilar, and here I'll start moderating. Totally forgot. Okay. Can everyone see my project?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is a Center for Sustainable Art and Design. The hybrid program consists of a museum and an adjoining makerspace for local artists and designers. In the museum, a formal learning exhibition space allows artists and designers to learn from the artworks of others, and the makerspace that is adjacent to that museum allows local artists to be able to encourage a more hands-on experience in creating art through exploration, experimentation, and self-expression. So at the same time, the makerspace allows this connection between the museum and how the spaces weave together to create a dynamic learning environment from observation to innovation. So if we move down into the area map, the site is located west of the LA River, and to the right are the train tracks, and then to the north is this East Olympic Boulevard Bridge. And so around the site, there's multiple moving parts. Given that the area is a heavy industrial zone, it is home to warehouses, factories, and never-ending noise pollution. Yet the area is evolving and more creative spaces are appearing, as shown in these orange dots. Therefore, the program aims to extend the knowledge of sustainable practices that proposes a new way of thinking, living, and designing. So moving on to the massing here. The massing derives from a primitive bar that was multiplied, scaled, and subtracted in creating these dynamic outdoor spaces at each level of the project. The project has 3 levels and are essentially separated into 3 bars. So in this following exterior view, the project is oriented at an angle that derives from the local urban grid of Boyle Heights and the 27th Historic District. This orientation emphasizes views to downtown LA, to the northwest, and the LA River over the train tracks. In addition, the view from the bridge serves as a great vantage point to the project, as coming across from the east, you get a glimpse of the whole composition of the project and the character of those outdoor spaces. So moving into the site plan, you can see the pedestrian access into the buildings are on the west side of the site. So here's the entrance into the museum, and then here's the entrance into the makerspace. And then to the east side of the site is the vehicular access that leads to subterranean parking and the loading dock area. So then moving into the ground floor plan, as mentioned before, the first 2 bars are the museum. So here we have an auditorium space to host events and lectures. And then the middle bar is the main lobby. At the entrance of this main lobby, there is a line of sight that directs their view across the site towards the framing of view of the adjacent train tracks. And then the entrance to the makerspace is at the southern end of the site. That leads to an open workspace area and a wood shop and welding shop. The second floor shows basically both of these spaces, as mentioned before, weaving together through bridging and exterior circulation with the makerspace work areas and the galleries of the museum. And then the 3rd level plan shows more of those outdoor spaces. So they are contrasting between these lounging spaces of the museum and then the outdoor cafe area, and then the workspaces of the museum, of the makerspace, sorry. And then also to note, this is the grand staircase that connects from the main lobby all the way through the building between the 2nd and 3rd level galleries. This exterior staircase aligning with it also connects those outdoor deck areas between the museum and makerspace, weaving together those dynamic areas. So in section to the left, that basically cuts through that line of sight that we mentioned in my ground floor plan, from the entrance to the museum, through the lobby, out towards the back of the loading dock area and across the train tracks. The section to the right shows that outdoor deck that connects the two spaces together on that second floor gallery to the outdoor workspaces of the makerspace. Also highlighted in this section are the tall galvanized steel framing structures that define these outdoor spaces. And they can be adapted for the user's needs, whether as support for artwork or shading. And so moving on to the elevation, those light structural steel structures are the extension of the facade system. And so this facade system is basically 4 by 9 feet fiber cement panels that are grouped into quadrants, creating this pattern system of solid and perforated panels. And then here's another elevation of the south view, where you can also see like those breezeways between the 3 buildings. And then in this more detailed section, it shows the 2 program spaces and how they differ from each other, with drop ceilings in the museum space and exposed structure in the makerspace labs. And then the structural steel framing system is more apparent in this diagram, as well as in the section perspective of how that structural system begins to compose the sequence of spaces. So here it's cutting through that bridge between both of the museum volumes. You have the outdoor sculpture garden that bridges over to the cafe. And then on the second level, you have 2 galleries. And then the ground level is an office space and the auditorium. And then moving on to the vignettes. So life within the building is shown in this left vignette of the makerspace, where designers and artists work in a collaborative open space, as well as having the flexibility to bring their work outdoors, as can be shown in the right elevation, where this right vignette, where this is the amphitheater space that kind of serves as an informal learning space, and where pottery or sculpting or painting may take place. And then moving into the museum, this is the 3rd floor gallery space that leads to the outdoor sculpture garden that brings views to the east and the north. And then next to it is the 2nd floor gallery space, where guests who are circulating through the gallery can peer into the activities of the makerspace as well. Lastly, this view encompasses basically the ordering of materials and structure coming together as they form the different spaces. And as illustrated here are the outdoor work areas of the makerspace and how that space is utilized. Thank you, and I will unmoderate so you can move around.
Thanks, Caitlin.
I have a question. Why are you, if I may say, going underground? Why are you digging?
For the subterranean parking.
In your sections. On your section, it seems, if I got it correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, you have some of your program is underground, right? I mean, like projection room.
Just the parking is underground, yes.
Oh, just the parking. Sorry. Okay, so I think I misread one of them. Well, actually, it's a very consistent package that you're offering. I think there is first, I think, to make a link with the previous project, you are somehow contextual. You just providing us pretty clear information about where we are at and what's your take about the parcel that you have and how we can get there. with kind of a trick with shifting and rotating the organizations of your volumes. I think you're pretty much at end as well with the kind of tectonic aspect, meaning how does it works. There is nice little details. Well, there are a couple of things about the beam running. They might be better running in the other direction, but it doesn't matter. What's important that you did that. It's actually by doing it that we discovered that they should rather span in the direction of the cantilever. So I mean, there is a very consistent package, and what I appreciate is the last set of drawings where you really dragging us, if I may say, or doing a promenade with us about what could be the potential use of the space. So I appreciate how you're in it. I mean, you're living in it, which is, I mean, I like the level of implication rather than sometimes a level of distanciations. So you're really into it. And that helps. If you're into it, that means you can drag us into it because we follow you. So I think you did a kind of an interesting package. I think there is interestingly, there seems to be more to me focus and opportunities in the interior of your project, which is good, rather than your take and resolutions about what is the envelope on the outside, which is you have a kind of system, but actually I do not see it's somehow maybe a little bit too generic. I don't see how it's specialized according to its orientations, on one side or the other. So I think you have the good bait there with those two elevation there. I think you should customize and give them, a little bit, why one is having not the same reason than the other, but it's literally composed of the same palette of elements. And I think you should have rather a bit more of a customization with, what's the sun orientation, which one needs to have more louvers or more opaque parts than the other, which might open more east, northeast, north, and have opportunities of, having maybe views by the way, but as well natural light more without the risk of the south and that you would encounter on the south and the west side. Well, it's a very consistent package. I think you did, and the verbal presentation pretty compact and sounds like kind of pro.
Thank you, Olivier.
I can jump into more technical details for this project maybe. And part of it has to do with the planning of the roof garden and mechanical. Usually there's a lot of conflict going on. If the mechanical is really talking about a small plant, small cooling tower or something like that, those things are noisy as hell. So something to just understand in the future. But you started the project by saying that this is about sustainability. And I think Olivia already talked about, if you're going to go that route, then, your facade, the performance of the facade as it relates to the cardinal direction of the sun and everything needs to be fully addressed. And, I generally don't trust any plan that dotted line on it. And so you do have the dotted line, which allows me to understand where the shaded area is. So I'm looking at probably the ground level plan and trying to understand where can I be as a person on the ground level, where I can gather and where I can have activities at the ground level, but I'm also shielded from the sun, which is probably 98% of the time here in Southern California, we need shade outdoors. And that would also extend the use of programming outdoors. So I'm continuing to look for those opportunities. I think that you haven't really extracted all the possibilities of that. So what's underneath the shade does not grow in a different way. When I first looked at your plan, I saw all these planters. I said, oh, she's looking at low impact development, like lit gardens or something, or channeling some runoff from the roof, and capturing the water on site or any of the other sustainable moves. You haven't talked about that, so I would encourage you to think about it. I think that there's a great deal of sophisticated thinking about how different activities relate to each other and seeing across. I like what you said, from the gallery, you can see through past the stairs to the other side where the maker's space is, and you get glimpses of things that's going on. And certainly, I think that that kind of thinking is really important and suggests that you have thought a lot about that interior experience, which I'm always for that. I always think that one makes architecture to create an interior because we spend 98% of the time indoors. So I think that you have addressed that and you have imagined that quite well, and you've sort of brought us into that world quite a bit. Back to the sustainability stuff. When you said so emphatically, it's going to be a 4x9 panel, alarm bells went off in my head, because one of the most sustainable things that you can do, and just a no-brainer, is to research the size of materials, what format they come in, and know that if you're kind of cutting it, you're not creating waste. And 4 is a fairly common dimension, 9 is not. So, so that's something in the future you want to just do it almost like in your sleep. You just wanted to know what materials you're working with. And then the same with, Olivia already talked about your beam direction and all that stuff. That's okay. Structurally, it's a start. But I looked at your section where you're showing basically W-shape, I-beam sections and stuff. And most likely that's probably going to be open web steel joists. And that would allow you to also create a condition where you can potentially sometimes, pass through mechanical, electrical, plumbing in those things and not have to, really sacrifice too much ceiling space in that. So just something to technical thing. The last thing is that representation. Your elevations do not convey the kind of sculpting of the building, as well as the way that you have shown in those axonometric. I think we get a lot more understanding of volumetric play and everything in the other drawings than the elevation. So in the future, don't let that go. There is ways to represent the elevation in a way that will talk about your design a lot more.
Thank you, Annie.
I think that's really great, Annie. You've really gone through this whole project, and I think now I should probably add to this way more the sort of urban context that you have and for your project, Caitlin, because you were starting at the beginning, pointing at the train tracks, and that is somehow, actually also an exciting situation, the bridge, the river, and all these kinds of things. And then that doesn't really show up anymore in the project, which is something that happens very, very often. Yeah, so that then it sort of says, okay, at the beginning, I'm looking at my site and I'm seeing the context, and I'm, it's like, it could be really interesting to have trains running through all these freight trains that are like, miles long, and they sort of give a certain urban rhythm visually, and also their sound and all of that, and it makes it all a bit sort of weird and industrial and strange and so on. And then we're looking at these interiors, and I agree, yes, you through your interior visualizations, you're really inviting us into the building, but then all of a sudden I'm in a museum and I'm supposed to look at the artwork and the museums, and I'm completely inside, and I'm sort of wondering where your project is actually bringing us back to that exciting found urban context that is surrounding the whole thing. And I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity because you could have created that way more. It could have happened through the facade. I mean, it's like, if you want to be really tacky, then you just put a sort of 70s mirror facade onto it or something like that. That sort of, I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm trying to sort of explain, how sort of buildings can all of a sudden then really reflect the outside to the outside, or there are ways of playing with transparency in the facades, yeah, so that maybe when you're inside, you're not even so aware of it, but then at a certain time of day or light or something like that, you all of a sudden feel more of the outside or something like that, yeah. And then there's also this thing, the other thing that I want to ask you and ourselves, all of us actually, I mean, I think we've had a lot of conversations about what is the 21st century museum, and I find that is not really addressed here. We are looking at a very classic museum space. But on the other hand, we are not, because actually what you're missing here in your plan, I think, in your organization, spatial organization, is a lot of archive space, which museums need, and storage simply. But anyways, what I'm finding a little bit, questionable is that your building is so precisely ordered according to the functions and uses that it offers, so we know exactly this is the maker space and this is the show space and this is this and this is that. And actually, I personally think the best museums are those that you put into some warehouse or something like that, where you can move walls around. It's totally normal. A lot of galleries are doing that. They sort of, together with the artists and so on, create the spaces that are needed for the pieces they are showing. And you can play with light, you can play with scale, you can play with a lot of things. And that is where I have doubts that your building can do that, because it's so extremely clearly defined. And I think it could be way more flexible, yeah. But it doesn't seem as if this was your intention, and that for me is a little bit of a missed opportunity. So I think you will be looking at your project after this, and I would invite you to think a little bit about that. It's like, what kind of exhibitions can I really show here? What is this? And is the art world and whatever we are exhibiting, actually, does that still exist, or hasn't art actually also moved on? Are we having completely other types of exhibitions these days? Yeah. Also thinking of something like, museums were the first thing that closed down with COVID and the last thing that is currently reopening. And then what are we actually doing with this? It's an incredible luxury. These institutions are eating a lot of money, and nobody can go to the exhibitions. I find it extremely frustrating that there's so many exhibitions that were put on during COVID, and now that they're finally opening, they're putting on other exhibitions. So why are they not showing us that stuff that was kind of closed for a year? Yeah, I mean, that's a completely weird situation that we're having here right now, and so I think we need a bit more flexibility in this, yeah, and dynamics of where we really are in 2021, and in the urban context and inside that building.
I think Karen's statements are very astute in terms of where we are thinking about the museum world. Karen, the reason they can't show the show is that there's a curatorial calendar that's 3 years planned ahead. So other shows and all the things that I've borrowed has to show up. We actually designed an inaugural show for the Oklahoma Contemporary Art Center that opened literally during COVID, and so was never seen, maybe the last 5 days of it. So I empathize with your
So
frustration about what happened last year with all the museum world. But I think that, like in a very small way, and it's not the prime example of it. And when you have a chance, go ahead, not to Karen, I'm talking about the students, at least go to Hauser and Wirth, in the arts district and see that kind of conversion of a warehouse environment into a art display space that takes advantage of the spaces in between buildings. And you set yourself up with the premise of buildings and the spaces in between buildings. And I would say that probably they're the least designed spaces and the most potential for, spontaneous art activities are the spaces in between buildings. So when you go to Hauser and Wirth, obviously there's this courtyard that there's sculpture and installation in there that's next to Manuela, the restaurant, that's next to the spaces where they're raising chickens, and stuff like that. And so you begin to understand that kind of the generosity of like not doing so much to the building itself, that tailored everything for a specific function. And I think that that's a really important thing to take away from this. The difficulty for museums is that the American Alliance of Museums set standards for museum spaces that have a great deal of demands on the environmental controls of the museum, temperature, humidity, all that stuff. Any stewardship of the artifacts that are going in and out of the building, when Karen talked about, or somebody, maybe Olivia talked about how things are delivered into the building and stuff like that. All that stuff plays against flexibility, or, the preciousness of like having doors closed so that the air conditions maintaining within like 3 degrees of variation, and so is the humidities within 5% and all this other stuff. So there's a constant struggle as an architect to go between those demands and also to try to be very generous about how people can use space and not let architecture be the kind of, the dictator of it all. But yeah, it's, I think Karen very well said about some of those things that you mentioned are kind of key discussions right now in this typology.
We just have a few minutes left. I want to give Ben a chance to chime in.
I'd echo what the others have said. I mean, I could probably say, maybe add to it by saying that you have a, I think that museum spaces, as we've heard, are anything but a kind of specific these days. They demand the art modes of production is a kind of production. The purposes of the museum has really moved on from kind of having fixed spaces, especially in this kind of a context. I mean, you're not going to, this is not LACMA. This strikes me as being in an environment where it would be more of a, like a Kunsthalle. I mean, that's a huge, distinction. Is this a collecting museum, or is this a just a place for exhibits? And you may have mentioned that, I didn't, and I might have missed it, but that distinction is really important to make. And assuming it's the latter, assuming it's kind of a Kunsthalle that doesn't collect, that is a place for events and happenings and performances and different kinds of media, you have a building that is kind of a box, and yet it's very, very specific. And oftentimes we kind of associate a box with in museum talk as being something that's kind of unspecific. It's kind of like somebody's taken over an old building and turned it into a museum space. Maybe it's something like Hauser and Wirth, as Annie mentioned. but this space, you're very specific. It's not, and yet I think the kind of program that you're putting in this demands that it be more flexible. And I really think that looking forward, you'd want to think about how you could make it so, because I just don't think this kind of a museum is what we demand these days.
Right.
I think if I can jump into, this is a really great opportunity because we have Ben here.
Mhm.
I want to do a little experiment,
Mhm.
which is, Ben, if you look at this, maybe like just the ground floor plan right now,
Mhm.
can someone channel the whole thing into a ground floor plan, blow it up? Okay. Paul Nogus is invited to make an installation in this space.
Mhm.
And they've just come and visited it. The only restriction is that, they can have, anywhere that they want. It could be the first floor, second floor, third floor, spaces in between, whatever, anything within the boundary. What's your first and second instinct, Ben, where you would install anything? Like, where would you be interested?
I would be interested in maybe weaving through all of the disparate parts of this and creating some sense of continuity through it. So my first instinct would be to violate all the designated uses of the spaces.
So this is super telling, right? So you have a user, Ben Ball, the artist, coming in to do installation, and the first thing he read is to try to weave through and just install through the whole thing. What would be your second instinct, Ben, if that is not allowed?
If that was not allowed,
Uh-huh.
Maybe working in the interstitial spaces between the buildings.
So that's also very telling, because he's rejecting the spaces that you program for the artist. He's actually working outside of that. So, which goes back to, this is the old idea that Stephen Hall had a long time ago, which is, anytime that you work in the city, don't design the objects, design the spaces in between.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think that, thank you for playing along, Ben. That's great. Yeah.
Now I want to do it.
Right. We have to leave it there. I think that's a really fun and super instructive place to leave it, though, Caitlin. Excellent work, beautiful drawings. You really stuck with it, and you're done now. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for your comments. It's very helpful.
All right. Okay, and our final student for the our first part of this early afternoon is Betty Vasquez.
Hi, thank you everyone
Betty.
for coming. Hi, my name is Betty. Well, Beatrice Vasquez, but you can call me Betty.
Sorry, Beatrice, I should be official right now since we're on YouTube. You were on YouTube Live and everyone's family is watching. So screen is shared. Go ahead and moderate and begin whenever you'd like.
All right, I started moderation. Can everyone see? Okay.
Yes, they're nodding, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, we see.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you all for coming. My project is the Boyle Heights Community Center and Garden, and it's a project focused on food. The project caters to people that reside in Boyle Heights, people like a mother of two who needs somewhere safe where her kids can go after school while she's at work, a retiree who wants to revive their passion for cooking but doesn't have access to affordable fresh produce, or a middle school student whose dream is to go to culinary school but doesn't have access to a full kitchen. Food brings people together. However, many communities in Los Angeles do not have easily accessible and affordable fresh produce. An example is Boyle Heights. a community near downtown Los Angeles, which is predominantly Hispanic and Latino community consisting of mostly low-income families. The Boyle Heights Community Center is a place for everyone of all ages to learn about food and healthy eating. So this is my site diagram, and here in marked in blue, you can see where my site is. As you can see, there's a large residential area over here on your right. And above here, there are many schools that are about a 14 to 15-minute walk to my site. And right next to us is an apartment complex that's funded by a nonprofit organization that caters to low-income families, people with disabilities, and elderly people. So here's a view where my site is located. As you can see, it's next to the LA River over here. My program consists of 4 elements. The first being the children's spaces over here on this corner, on the eastern corner, and then here is where my the second being the lounge working spaces on the southern corner, and then above here is where my cooking classrooms are located with a green roof or roof garden above. And my greenhouse is located on the most southern corner over here. And all these elements are then unified by a structural grid. This steel grid framework allows for a total freedom to have elevated walkways, exposed systems such as structure, mechanical, and irrigation, which makes it an honest and educational space that people can interact with and take over. The plants will also take over the project, as well as other elements that the community may want to add, such as nets or more hanging planters to hang from the structural grid. I really wanted to make a project that the community could feel that it was their own and they could take over. Here's just a diagram showing these different systems. The first one being the structural frame that extends throughout the entire project. And this allows for the HVAC and irrigation system to extend through the project as well. And here you can see the main 2 cores of circulation. So here's just a program diagram breaking down the project and the different square footage. And over here is a plant diagram that shows the different types of produce that's going to be growing in this project. So for example, and it's based, their location is based on their different necessities. So the fruit vines, they're located on the roof garden because they need full exposure to the sun. And then, for example, the seedlings are then located in the greenhouse in a nursery because they need special attention. And down here, you can see the amount of produce in pounds that can be harvested based on the area of each plant that they need, and also like the square footage that is available to them. So here's my lower floor plan. This shows the slope condition here where it's cutting, as well as the area where they go through the compost and garbage and some storage. And here's my first floor plan. This shows the 2 main entrances, one being on the eastern side and the other being on the southern side of the project. As you can see, there are many planters that are growing here, and the corn grows here in the middle. Here's a lobby, and here's the cooking classrooms, as well as the lounge area with an open space and the greenhouse. Here's the second floor plan. As you can see, here's the lounge area over here as well, and on the second floor of the cooking classrooms, and then there's the first floor of the children's spaces. I added a slide that goes from the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor and some nets that the kids could interact with. and be in. And the reason why I added those two is because I wanted to create a more fun, dynamic space for them. And then you can also see how the elevated walkway connects these two parts of the project, and it runs and circulates through the greenhouse, which allows the users to circulate through the whole project on the second floor. Here's my third floor plan, and here you can see the third level of the children's spaces, as well as the advising and workspaces that the kids could go to for advising, and the adults that are, or people that are in the cooking school can come here and a quiet place of study. And then here's the roof garden with some nets for shading, since it's probably going to be really hot there. And then over here are some vignettes showing these spaces. On this corner, you can see the kitchen classrooms with the exposed joist and HVAC running through. And then here's the kids area as well, with the expressed joist and the structure as well. You can see where the slide is and the nuts. And over here, on this right bottom corner is the eastern entrance. So you can see that the greenhouse is located on this left side, and over here, this red mass shows where the kids' spaces are, and on the bottom in polycarbonate is where the lobby is. And above, you can see the second floor to the greenhouse, where all these elements are coming together. So you have the structure, the HVAC, and then all the plants and the circulation. And over here is the section perspective. This shows where all the elements are coming together, where you have the elevated walkway running through the entire project, and people can walk through it as well. Going through the greenhouse. And then you can also see the relationship between the slope and the structure, and people can also walk through the entire project on that. And if we zoom in here, you can see how the irrigation system is working here on the on the roof garden, and how it's connected to the greenhouse running down here. So you can see the pipe running down the greenhouse. And those are just the different elements that you can see in this section. Okay. Here's the wall section perspective. On your left, you have your greenhouse, and on your right, you have your cooking classrooms. And if we go here on the right, you can see how the structure is working, where you have these open little areas where you can open them, a curtain to control the amount of sunlight coming through, how the structure is embedded within the main structural grid, and then the planters that they're hanging. And on your right, you have the roof garden and its structure, and the walls and how that's working. And then if we zoom out here, you can see the pipes running down from the greenhouse as well, that goes to the street for the main source of water. And if we continue on to the elevation, so this is the east elevation, and here you can see the different materials that I was playing with. So for the masses, I wanted to create something more earthy toned and solid. So with this clay-like material, it's also reminiscent of Mexican textures that are used. And here is the greenhouse with the glass. And in between the spaces where the entrances is covered by the polycarbonate that you can slide open. And you can see that as well on the bottom over here on the south elevation, how all these elements are coming together. And again, the polycarbonate. The reason why I added this polycarbonate on the entrances is because I wanted this space to be a safe place for people to come to, as well as like for the children that are coming here. And I wanted also to make this an inward looking project as well. All right, thank you so much. I'm gonna stop moderating.
Thank you, Betty.
Why inward looking?
Well,
why?
Okay, so Boyle Heights, it has high crime rate, and there's also not like many views. So I really wanted this to like I said, like be a safe place for the community. And there's also like I was reading some articles about Boyle Heights, and there's a concern for safety for kids from parents, and so that was one of my concerns. So that's why I made it very inward looking, its own community.
But like, don't you think? I mean, drive through. I mean, my studio's in this neighborhood, and then it's a kind of not a very. It's not residential at all. And then if you go up into the residential areas of Boyle Heights, you know, people have gardens and people have fences, and you can see into people's gardens and you can have conversations on the sidewalk. So if Boyle Heights, the residential part of Boyle Heights, is not this kind of defensive architecture, why does yours need to be that way?
I wouldn't say it's defensive necessarily. I do think that there is with all the vegetation, it's really inviting. Mm-hmm. However, I also wanted to make it a safe space. It's like I don't know, just because there's kids that are in this site, so mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure that they were in a safe space, even if the community is very engaged with each other, and that's why I wanted to provide something for them to come here as well, and use this for their own advantage to grow food and learn about food, and for kids to also come here and learn about food, which is really good for actually if kids, when they're working with soil, it's actually really good for the respiratory system. So that's why I wanted to make this space, but I wouldn't necessarily think of it as not inviting or standoffish. I would say it's very inviting because of all the greenery. And during the day, the polycarbonate would actually slide open. It'd be mostly at night where they would close.
I mean, I'm a little. I can I can accept that as an explanation that you want it to be a kind of you don't want it to be just open to the street so that anybody can wander into it. But I'm a little troubled by the grid, and if the aspiration is to make a kind of elevated garden, you've really reduced your options for growing produce or growing anything by you have this grid, you have these spaces that are these kind of interstitial spaces between the volumes that inhabit this grid. And I'm concerned that you might not have enough flexibility with light access to that. Can you talk a little bit about your process in thinking about how this is a place for growing plants, and how you've provided for the needs of the plants?
Yes.
Just to add one more point, just to clarify, what Ben's asking is the same question. The first thing I ask is, why is the greenhouse blocking all the southern light towards the corn? I would have vacated the entire southern side of the site if we're growing something. So that's the nature of our question.
That's the same thing I'm asking. And furthermore, you've got it interrupted by a lot of grids. So take it away.
All right. So the reason why I positioned the greenhouse in the southern axis is because in the southern part is because the greenhouse does need a lot of sunlight, and mainly most of the vegetables and produce I'm growing is going to be in the greenhouse. So that's why I situated it on the south. I actually did speak to his name is Douglas, and he's from the Lyle Center. And I spoke to him, and he advised me on where to place these plants. And he actually suggested that the corn be situated in the center. That would be the perfect place for it. And then the other part is like the roof garden. And there it does get a lot of sunlight because it is elevated on the roof. So I don't think sunlight would be an issue for the plants. I can see what you're saying about the grid though, because it does give a lot of shadows. But I will say that at least in where it's like situated, if you see like where the arrow is pointing, it gets a lot of sunlight because that's like the south side.
I mean, I would propose that the grid itself is it's sort of like you coming to terms with how to order the different elements of the project, and it's a device and it's not the actual design. Like what you're looking for is something that strings all the greenhouse and everything else together. And you also, what I love about the part that you didn't say too much is actually that cat face stucco, which is found in a lot of more less, I would say less affluent neighborhoods in terms of like stucco is like the exterior material of residential architecture and in LA, and that you begin to use this and juxtapose that and bring that material here suggests to me a device of playing with the domesticated palette. And I think that is really interesting, to have that juxtaposition between what you associate as domestic materials to something that you might look at as agricultural or industrial materials. I think that seems really an operative way to go about. But this project reminded me so much of it's not the same thing, but it reminded me of Karen and Stefano's work. When I start looking at, thinking about the way that they speculate, and sometimes they speculate through renderings. And when you come down to that one, there's one very sort of provocative, I don't know what happened to my concept board. Okay, the third from the bottom, the wall section perspective, and some of these vignettes where you begin to give us a sense of what that atmosphere is like between buildings and things like that. It reminded me of the act of speculation. And I think that maybe this project is just, need a lot more speculation. Like, first of all, I would say, the speculation of the solar path is important. The speculation of overlaying the domestic material palette over the industrial. All this stuff could happen actually in these renderings. It's a good sort of place to grow these ideas. It also reminded me of Fritz Haig's Edible Estates. So he's an architect who worked now mostly as an artist, but worked mostly with plant. He started this thing called Garden Lab, and then eventually he sort of started knocking on people's doors and said, can I grow stuff in your front lawn? And then it became like, institutions, and can I grow something on your grounds and stuff like that. And he was growing food everywhere. And something that is provocative like that. I mean, to suggest this in that very industrial area that Ben was describing, I think is radical. And I think that you have to almost like cast aside some of the normal ways that, we are trained as an architect to, do these plan sections and elevation. It doesn't get you anywhere in terms of the essence of the project or the promise of the project, which is very highly speculative. So what I'm saying is that choose your tools, right? I would definitely look at Karen and Stefano's work and see, their means of speculation. I think that's a good model for you. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Annie, for mentioning that. I think probably I should be jumping in here right now because that is there's a lot of things that I wanted to say as well. And there is something for me, the very first thing that I saw in your project was actually this grid. And it reminded me obviously of things like the radical architecture movement in the 70s and so on, where you see super surfaces, you see no-stop cities and all these kinds of things. And I was, and then you were talking about the garden at the beginning, and I thought it was really beautiful. And the whole idea, your whole concept is beautiful. Yeah. So I think you understand the neighborhood, you understand the needs, and yeah. And I think, okay, so now I'm saying again, yeah, this thing should probably be a lot more flexible, and maybe flexible is not exactly the right word for it, but it could be doing a lot more than you let it do. Yeah. So if we took this building really as that grid, yeah, you could, you don't even have to exactly decide which plants grow where. Yeah, I mean, we are now in the 21st century landscape and agriculture planning, where we are working somewhere between a performative and a productive landscape with hydroponics, aeroponics, and so on. And you can actually be way more productive and also very economic with water. You can guide lights through mirrors, through all kinds of things, into this building. And I think it's a little bit, I mean, don't get me wrong, but I for lack of a better word, I would almost say it's a little bit over-designed. And it would have been more exciting had you given the whole thing more freedom. Yeah, that sometimes there are more plants in there, sometimes there are less plants in there. Then you could do the cooking school at one end of the building and another time at another end of the building. I mean, you can, kitchens also don't need to be fixed into something so much anymore. They, as we can see, you can cook on the sidewalk here in Los Angeles and so on. So obviously you just drive your kitchen through the building on wheels, and there could be so much more performance in this whole thing. Yeah. And excitement. And you were actually saying that also, you were talking about interaction. Yeah. So I think that's where the kids are getting excited. Yeah. I think the whole idea that you are having here is fantastic to just bring the kids right away to another world, which is, hey, living with plants instead of living with asphalt. Yeah. This is totally needed. It's super important. I'm really glad to see this here. Yeah. In the middle of the city, and but it should give them so much more. Yeah, so I mean, and direct less. Yeah, so that these kids can actually, yes, have their safe environment, but also then really just do whatever they want to do there. Yeah, and just have a couple of people who guide them a little bit, and that's it. And the big advantage of these new forms of agriculture, hydroponics, aeroponics, and so on, is also that they need not only less water but less fertilizer, if not at all. And you can work with all kinds of different systems where plants protect each other. Different plants protect each other from bugs and illnesses and stuff like that. There's so much to learn, And that is what your building is to me, you know? It's a grid, and in that grid, things are just really exploding. Yeah, and that would be really cool. Yeah, and I think it's possible actually. You just need to take a little bit out of your project and let things grow and just do. Yeah, and I think it's very inspiring. Yeah, but take it out. You know, I'll leave it here a little bit there.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I could second all of that. I think that
There
one of the
is,
things
there,
I've
sorry,
oh, go ahead. I think
no,
that
no,
you're just a little bit inflexible in it.
yeah,
You know, look at, you know, if you were to take the Fritz Hegg example a little bit further, you look at what he's working on today, and it's a permaculture, or, you know, whatever word you want to use to describe it, permaculture, you know, more sustainable type of agriculture. But what the key aspect of that is specificity in the relationships between the things on the site. And I think that with time, you would start to learn where the optimal locations are for certain types of plantings, what the kind of adjacencies should be, which places get the right kind of light for different kinds of plants. And I would wager that I'd say it's foolhardy to begin the design process of a building like this with those relationships set in stone. That it's more productive to think about this as a laboratory that will evolve with a deeper understanding of the specifics of the micro environments that will be created by the architecture and the solar orientation. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Go on.
yeah.
Olivier, if you've got comments, we just have a
Yeah,
few
I
minutes.
just wanted to add, actually, it's a very interesting things were said, so very few things to add up. I think there is a very consistent body of work. I rather would perceive, and you're touching something that is really apropos, as you say in English, considering the trend, the context, and simply the future orientations of producing food within the city texture. So permaculture, it's more like it's a natural way to mix and optimize production in the countryside. I think in the city, you have to be on real soil. But I think there is one aspect here. Your proposal, I rather see it as a system, and I agree with Ben that it's a little bit frozen here, and you probably should be more flexible because it is subject to a lot of evolutions and manipulations. And the other thing that you should address because of your positions, one, you are in a much more kind of industrial area, so I think there is nothing wrong in considering, like the Dutch way, that it is a kind of industry like one other. The other thing is like you by the river, and I think to me, you cannot escape with addressing the issues like how do you get the water that you're going to need, and how you kind of do a loop with trying to keep the minimum from the river because you will be only getting the minimum anyway. But how it's kind of emphasize the good reason for you to propose a project, that type of project in that specific site.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, all of you. Thank you, Betty. Excellent presentation. You're done. Congratulations.
Yay.
We are going to leave and we are going to room 1, but our jury, Karen, Olivier, Benjamin, and Annie, thank you so much. You guys will stay here. And Andrew Lucier will be in a moment to introduce his 2 students for you to see. And thank you so much for your time and your insights. It's great to see everyone. Thanks you so much.
Thank you.
Great to see the work.
Thank you, everyone.
And I like all the pourable things that you're doing these days.
To me?
Very exciting.
Oh, oh, the poor things?
To try to control the uncontrollable. I love that.
Yeah. And we get pretty good at controlling them. They are, there was a discussion that came up about those projects is, first of all, are they controlled? And the answer was unequivocally yes. They definitely are controlled. You have, we really imposed a set of rules on them by pouring the stuff out of 12-ounce cups. And that kept the size of the application of the pores consistent, and it kind of outlined a particular aesthetic form. And but I'm looking forward to doing more of those. What I realized about them is that they're really paintings. As long as one, kind of makes them thicker at the base and a little thinner at the top, they're going to stand up. But they're really paintings, and the sequence that one applies the paint, if you will, is what determines how they turn out. And so it really quickly became a challenge that I hadn't fully recognized when I began. They're super fun. I can't wait to do more. I want to do a big one. I want to do one that's kind of more permanent and do one in like inside somebody's. It'd be good for like a conference room or something.
So Benjamin, how do you choose your colors? I mean, the combinations of colors, is that just random, or are you sort of really composing the colors for the pieces? What makes you decide?
We're composing the colors. These were first attempts. This is a process we've been working with only for about 6 months. And so the colors were more or less composed according to our own rules of taste, I suppose. But what is important that I've learned about the color is that they're difficult to control over large batches. We don't have the right. We can't keep consistently make that pink across throughout a given day. It might vary substantially. So you have to kind of build those considerations into the process. The other thing is, what colors will these foams actually assume? The dyes are more successful for some colors than others. Some blended colors, like a purple, may not turn out as planned. So we're really learning the ropes of adding color to these things and how to use it. So for this first go around, we tried to keep them real simple. But I think as we get a little bit, as we do more of these projects, we'll start getting more elaborate in the way that we think about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like these combinations. That's why I was asking, because I thought, is this now something like just taste, or is it, is there more behind it? And are they completely? I mean, would they be bleaching in the sun at some point?
They did. They did, in fact, bleach. The museum just took them down last week. They were only designed to be up for 2 weeks and 3 weeks, but they did find a little bit of fading in them. And certain colors are more prone to fading than others.
Mm.
I don't know. Well, I think the next go around we'll try different types of dyes. These are the manufacturer's dyes that are made specifically for these for this foam. I don't even know if there's anything that the manufacturer produces which would actually be completely light fast. So that's something we'll be exploring in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is you can dye these with RIT dyes. You can actually use fabric dyes on them, and we tried that. The question is longevity.
Yeah. Can you recycle them in some way as well?
No. These not that I know of. If anybody has any recommendations on how to put urethane foam in these quantities into some kind of upcycling, recycling system, I'd be all ears. We haven't really explored yet using some of the biodegradable or some of the foams that are made from, say, cornstarch, for example, which are they're out there. Whether they're actually can actually achieve these results, that's another question. Again, I think it's time. This was sort of pretty quick project, and to try to really think through what we could do given a set of materials that we know more or less would work. And that brought up the kinds of questions that you're asking, which is, could we make this out of a material that could, be biodegradable, be much more preferable. There's kind of nothing nastier than urethane foam when you can think about it in a landfill.
No, it cannot get into the landfill. It has to stay forever.
Totally.
So you're not going to get rid of it.
Right.
All goes there.
Right.
So.
But it's very fun. I mean, the question of control came up, and it is a looser form of control, but there's control nevertheless. And it's just kind of different way of different method of control, different kind of scope of control, I suppose.
We're in the right place, right? We're just waiting for them to show up. Is that right?
That's
I think so.
Yeah, we actually have a break till 2 before the next session starts.
Oh, when's the next session? What time?
Oh, good.
The next
2 o'clock.
session, sorry. Actually start at 2
Oh, okay.
with Andre.
Okay, great.
All right, we can go do something then. Okay. See you
guys
at 2.
later.
See you at 2.
So 2, okay.
Michael? Sorry for the delay. We have a little technical issues, and I'll let you guys know when the presenter is entering the room. Thank you. Benjamin? Are you
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I think someone made you a host. Do you mind to switch that for me?
Of course.
Yeah,
How do I
don't
do
know
that?
why. So if you go
No
to
worries.
participants in the bottom,
Yep.
if you click that and you see the list of people, if
Yes.
you go next to my name, go to more, you should be able to make me a host.
Okay, let me look. Yep. Should I say it says ask all to enable waiting room, allow participants to unmute themselves, rename, start video?
Is there one that you click on me and they said make them a host?
Okay. Ah, I see.
Okay.
Got it.
And I'll take over everything until you make me a host.
Okay, I'm making you a host. There you are.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
And I'll take over.
We figured it out. Thanks, Jake.
Andre, what can I do to help?
Well, you did. Now it's all solved. Well, I think you have to make like Jamie co-host again.
Oh, I'm host now because just now, for some reason, Benjamin became the host and he has to make me the host.
Sorry, Ben. I was in another room, so I just came in and I go, oh, I'll make Ben host. He can solve the problem.
Would you guys like me to do my opening monologue? I'll be the host for tonight, the
I
MC.
had no idea from the complex spreadsheet who was actually supposed to be host of this room, so I took the first name at the top. You guys good?
Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody. We're going to make this very fast, I guess, the intro so that we can go straight to the two student projects. My name is Andre Lucier. I've been teaching, I don't know anybody of you, so you guys, I guess, don't know me. I've been teaching at Cal Poly Pomona for 3 years. Worked at Johnson Mark Lee for 10 years, have my own practice, went to school in Zurich at ETH. And maybe you guys can do a very quick intro of you guys, and we can start with Olivier, and then Benjamin, and then Karen, and then Annie. That's possible.
I am Olivier. I've been teaching at USC for 12 years now. Been in LA for 23. And in the previous life before, I was a partner at Jean Nouvel and worked with Rem. But that's last millennium.
Thank you. Benjamin?
I'm Benjamin Ball. I've had a circuitous route to doing what I do today, which is, I would say, simply is a more of a public artist. I do a lot of also architectural special projects that not quite buildings and not quite artworks. I was a Hollywood art director for a number of years, and before that I worked for Frank Gehry and a lot of smaller architecture firms around LA.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm Karen Dorman. I'm at the Design of Cities program at Cpp Arc, and also working with the Now Institute, which is the research arm of Morphosis. And other than that, I've actually recently come back to LA. I was here before for 3 years, some 10 years ago. I'm from Europe. Worked always somewhere between Naples and Berlin. I actually did study at the ETH as well, Andre, but we never crossed. I don't think so. You're much younger than I am. And, you know, I'm actually working somewhere between the arts and curating and writing. And I think officially I'm the urbanist here today for you all. And
Great.
feel quite comfortable with that one.
That's great.
I'm Annie Chu. I'm an architect and an interior designer and an educator for 30 years, but I retired from teaching 2 years ago. I was born and raised in Hong Kong and a product of Arc in Colombia. And my formative training started in New York City, and I came back here to LA in 1990 and established my firm in 96 with my husband and partner, Rick Gooding. We do mostly work for cultural institutions and single family residents and quite a bit of exhibition design.
Great. Okay, I'll do a quick introduction to the project because we are a little bit in a different site than Wendy. We also have different program. The sites, there were 5 sites that the student could kind of select from along 5th Street in downtown LA between San Pedro and Central. I believe everybody here seems like are familiar with downtown LA and the Skid Row neighborhood. It's kind of in the heart of Skid Row, 5th Street, but also a little bit on the eastern end of downtown where it's a little bit more industrial, kind of lower buildings. It's an area that we feel like has a lot of potential for development, but also obviously a lot of kind of issues with the housing crisis and the kind of the homeless crisis. We are looking at the neighborhood somewhat optimistic a little bit for the future, that we think, you know, the program that we're developing can also be kind of will address like the homeless issue, but can also be kind of seen like, you know, what is needed in 20 to 30 years when hopefully maybe we have been able to kind of, you know, alleviate some of the pressures that are created by not having enough housing in that generally in LA. The program is what we call a public service building. So the students could kind of choose or mix between a public library, a recreation community center. Some students did a fire station component or also a homeless kind of shelter or education component. The buildings are also 60,000 square feet roughly, and the sites are all, some of them are a little bit bigger than 10,000 square feet, but they had to kind of max out the RFA. I think that's it. I don't know if you guys been told, but we're also live on YouTube, so it's a little bit different than the regular reviews that, you know, at the very kind of intimate setting at schools. So we'll have like lots of people watching. And then we will start with Darius. I will share the screen. Here we are, and Darius, please start.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meeting you guys. And actually, I'm so happy you guys mostly from Los Angeles, so you're familiar with the situation. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So I'm gonna read an overview of my thesis and intention, and then I'm gonna go over the drawing and the design strategy. So as you guys know, Skid Row is a neighborhood in downtown Los Angeles with a population of around like 11,000 residents, but more than 30% of its population is unhoused, with over 3,000 people living in shelters and the street. A space for specialized community services should be developed to provide a safe space focused on education and development for the unhoused. The project, my project, consists of a library, or basically a public building that supports interactive physical and digital information within responsive and transparent spaces. The library will engage its patrons through educational programs provided within a transparent and open building. A central open stairs connects the programs sorry, a central open stair connects the different public programs spatially and provides an open and engaging space. A protected and private middle floor house specific services for the unhoused where they can engage with each other and access social services. Individual small rooms are provided along the exit stairs course to provide temporary shelters for short-term occupancies. The public and private programs are expressed architecturally as an open glass building bisected by a more solid concrete volume. Thin metal screens on the facade create a secondary skin to provide shade and additional privacy on the outdoor terraces and street level. All right, so I'm gonna use the moderation on the concept board. All right, so the image at the top is what we started like the first semester. So the intention was, as you know, its name is public building. That means we're building for the public and specifically for the community that lives in that area. So based on the research, most of the residents are homeless or low incomes. So I was thinking about using stacking volumes so I can use its cantilever part as a, as a shade, shelter, anything for the homeless so they can use it anytime, anywhere. And basically, maybe it can be a role model for the development of that area. But as we developed, I came with this idea. So I use this L shape, simple geometry. I use just the simple geometries as, some of these people don't go even to, next area or neighboring area because of those high-rise buildings and, like the Frank Gehry's style, they are scared of that because of the people who use those buildings. So as much as, the building is simpler and basically less is more, I was implementing this idea here. So I use these geometries and I was gonna use this as the, whenever the homeless, need to rest and they're tired of the, on the street, they can use it as temporary spaces, even not at nighttime, they can use it. And also this building is going to be run by the homeless. So we have this geometry. I use it as core. It's like an open arm, like a free hug, and it shows protection because it goes, to the edge, and also expresses the security. Then I added another plate in the middle. For the homeless, it includes shower, bathrooms, some private rooms, and also workshops. So far, I started with the emphasizing the homeless and the neighboring population. And then I got to the main program. So to decide what the program is going to be, as you know, I don't want to get too much into the politics, even though architecture is all about politics. But basically people, especially in, rich countries, are homeless because they're not educated. And it's not purposely, but, the people they send to, govern them, they want them to not to be educated. So it's going to be a place for self-educating, basically. The entire program is going to go in this glass box right here that on the next image sits in this geometry. So basically, so far we have 3 simple square geometry. So this strategy creates opportunity. Basically, first of all, it's pushed back. That means it's secure because, a public building is just like a retail store. The front glass of a retail store, if you don't design it good, people don't enter to see what else you have in there. So Basically, pushing back this glass volume inside creates the opportunity for the plaza, and also the belt in the middle separates two different programs. As you see on the next image, so the first 3 floors are dedicated for socializing, like family. I have family floor, I have the education floor, and of course the first floor is the lobby that includes the cafe and bar and also a store. And the middle part, which is let's say private or semi-private, the public cannot go in there. That's just for the homeless, that they can use it through these arms. And also I have 4 floors over there. There's one event center right here, and also the 3 last floors, which requires more quiet space. That's for the library.
Darius, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
You have to go much, much faster.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. Okay, so far we get to this shape, but I have added, maybe you ask why you have like floor plates coming out because you have a solid building. Okay, the orientation of my building is just south and west and get the worst sun ever. So I added these plates right here. So it provides shade and also creates an outdoor connection for the users. But with all that said, it's not enough yet. Testing the sunshades, I have added the second layer of the enclosure or facade to block the sun, also privacy for people sitting in the terraces. And this is how my building sits on the site. At the corner, they have this nice plaza. And so the site plan, you guys all familiar with that. This is an image of the finished products, the metal meshes, trusses, the glass for transparency. And also, as you see right here on this belt, this is the event center. People can, through their parties over there, take pictures, weddings, anything, so they can have fun as well. And axon view, so I'm gonna go faster. This is the site plan, basically how the building sits on the site. So we go to the lobby or first floor. There's entrances from 2 sides. This building only has 2 facades, so both has entrances. And these are the metal meshes go all the way down to the plaza, because they can be used as the fountain. So in the summer, homeless people can get cool even outside the building. So there's the garage entrance right here that goes down. This is automatic parking. So we go, this is an image of the lobby. This side is the store, floor openings connecting each other. The first set, the socializing part are connected, and also the focus part are connected as well through floor openings. And we go to the second floor, which is the family. This is the kids corner right here, bathrooms and the screen.
Darius, way faster. You can't explain where the bathrooms are.
Okay. All right. So then you go to the next floor. You have classrooms right here, seminar room, and also terraces. And as you see right here, these little rooms for the homeless, which are 10 by 12 feet, are sitting on the landings, not at the same floor that the public uses. So they have privacy, public have privacy. They can use it anywhere they want. And I go to the next floor. This is the belt right here. Extra showers on the private rooms right here, and like a gathering area, and some pool tables right there, and also like workshops right here. They can even, whatever they learn on the 3rd floor, they can implement it here and sell it on the 1st floor. And this is the event center. As you see, these stairs doesn't open on the belt. It goes directly from 3rd floor to the 5th. Event center opens on the 5th floor, but it still doesn't have the opening to the below because maybe it's going to be a private event. And this image on the 2nd floor shows the opening floor right there. Another, the last 3 floors right here. I think I lost the stacks. Oh, no, they're not printed. This floor is for the stacks. This is for computer room and the another meeting room right here. And the last floor, which is the most quiet one, is for the study barrels. Another image right here. And this is a rendering of those little rooms with those little windows. Section right here. And the detail section that shows the connections and the floor system. The elevations right here. Another thing before I finish it. So using this belt extending outside connects this building and its user to the other part of the city because of the streets. So the rich part of the city can watch these people sitting right there having their events. So they know that they exist and they have to, take care of them. Another rendering, a rendering of the belt in the middle and the cut through the roof and the putting the building on the side. Thank you. I can't hear anything.
We're not speaking yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Should I stop moderating if you guys wanna go through?
Yes, maybe.
Yeah, can you give us back our control on the console
Sure.
so we can look in?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start somewhere here. There is a lot of information that you've given us. And I'm still trying to come to terms here with everything. So I'm sort of metabolizing, yeah. What I would like to understand is how do you imagine the interaction between these two user groups? You were sort of calling you were calling one group the unhoused and the other group the public. And first of all, how do you define actually the public? And then the second thing is, can you probably explain that again a little bit, how you imagine this interaction? Because you were also very careful at pointing out that the unhoused are often sort of very uncomfortable in the company of other people. And that is the whole reason for this corner that you're creating there. So I want to understand a little bit more there, because we are also always wondering how can we actually help the unhoused to reintegrate into, well, I won't say it's society because we're all society, but into other groups of the society. And so I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on here and how that relates to the spaces that you're developing.
Maybe if I can suggest, like if you go to your ground floor plan and talk about how the different groups actually enter into the building and what their reaction is, at the ground level.
Okay, so regarding the first question, basically I call this like a service building. Someone may call it public building, someone may call it library. So my intention was to do something that hasn't been done. So don't expect this project to be some kind of, you know, other libraries or other public buildings. So basically my intention was what I can do, you know, or any developer, any architects, the least to, you know, help these homeless people. I'm not providing housing for these people. This is a temporary bedrooms, you know, while they're on the streets, you know, it's hot, they cannot stay there, they use it. But for the program, so this building is going to be run by the homeless people. Of course, some other people will help them. So on the first floor, people can enter here, the homeless or even the public, they can use the coffee shop and bar and also use its store to buy something. You know, this program on the ground floor engage people in, you know, communicating with each other, and also makes the building more, you know, appealing to people. So they want to come inside because of the bar and the cafe. And then they're going to be introduced to, you know, other programs this building have. But for the for these arms on this side, you see here, this is the egress stairs on the sides, but I extended. This was my strategy. Okay, I moved my cord to the edges, so and extended, and it provides me a little room. It's not too much to ask a developer and or architect. If everyone in this area use this strategy, maybe it's going to be a transition, you know, for learning, for a better life for them. And also, you know, critical moments, they can use those little rooms and use the, of course, the shower and that big room in the middle for that. So they enter from either from this side or from the cafe side. They have these three options right here, and also these circular stairs take them to the second floor. Any questions on this floor?
Darius, so just to be clear, what you said is that basically, let me see if I can't annotate, but you're saying that you can actually enter through the egress there if you're a homeless person and yes, you wanted, and you were going to use one of the bed spaces upstairs, you don't really have to go through the public space?
No.
Okay, so you can come in. So
yes,
this is basically the egress stairs are, you know, in general locked on one side and have no hardware, but in this case, anyone can go into those stairs.
Yes.
Okay, so let's say providing that will work. My first, and I think that the ambition is very good, that you try to create a very public space that is, you know, welcoming to the public. I don't know how welcoming it is, because first it has a screen, and then you have to go through the screen, and then you go into this glass space. I have a little bit of issue with then the response of the central stair, because if you wanted the people to easily come in and out, you do not want to put them on display again. And so that ceremonial stair, it's almost like a model walking up the stairs. Like you'll be watching the people walking up and down the stairs. It is the center of attention of the space. And maybe to take your idea, which is, I think was very novel, the idea that you can use landings of normal stairs and program it. And maybe that idea can actually push towards even the ceremonial stair in some way. Maybe it's just a little bit less center of attention, you know, so that people are not on display. And maybe that stair actually grow more opportunities for programming for people to kind of get away from the main circulation and have a range of slightly more intimate privatized spaces, not just always publicly displayed. So I'm suggesting that you go ahead and push these boundaries of what is a status quo stair and think about your programming to actually challenge that status quo of the stair, which I think what I found was the most interesting about your proposal. I think it's very difficult to do social engineering, you know. As architects, we think that we can create spaces and people will act a certain way. Most times it's not true. People will use the spaces as they see it. So, you know, what I actually thought was quite interesting is that you're one of the few students that I can see that when you actually do the space planning, the spaces in between things are actually reasonably proportioned. And I don't know where you got that kind of sensibility, but I wanted to just point it out that, you know, the proportions of spaces seemed really reasonable.
Well, I think you that actually your verbal presentation should be obviously much more, you know, straight to the point, and maybe one of the technique is just have, like, you know, bullet points and guiding you. It's probably gains in, you know, going being a little bit shorter but more accurate and precise, rather about what are your intents rather than descriptions about, you know, here are the toilets. And I mean, we navigate through that, we know. I think it's definitely kind of a noble cause and quite of a challenging both sites and type of programs. I'm not sure on some aspect that are about, let's say, pudic aspect that I'm not sure if you are homeless, that being at the corner of a street with a glass facade and with the very elegant elliptical stair, as Annie was mentioning it, you just put under, you know, on display pretty much. And I'm not sure about these aspects that, you know, how people could be you know, feeling comfortable about entering there and you know, have access and negotiate, or they can stay in a place for a few days, few nights, few weeks. So I'm kind of curious, almost concerned that there would be the architecture, in fact, though like full of noble intents, is actually acting a bit more as a deterrent. I'm curious or questioning that in a way, because maybe there is a bit too much transparency or too much display of the things. I think on your, I mean, it's on your rendering, which is very elegant here. I mean, the two ladies here on your rendering, they seem to be, you know, especially the one on the left seems to be, you know, coming out from the Gucci store. So I think, you know, like what happens if you put some people with like, you know, a Ralph, you know, a Ralph bag with, you know, a mega whatever on wheels suitcase with pretty much all their goods with them. It's not the same, you know, it's not the same. Then it creates a kind of a huge distanciation between the very kind of elegant and almost rich, you know, design with the kind of, excuse me, kind of daily situation of homelessness.
I think Olivia brought up a really good point. I did do a couple of homeless studio when I was teaching at Art Center. And what we found out by having gone to the Weingart Center and the Path and all these people studying what they do, what the workers tell us is that Olivia's point that when you're homeless, you carry all your belongings with you. You're like the snail or the turtle. Your house is with you. All the bags, the shopping carts they can find and all this stuff. And that's all you have in the world. And people who are homeless are very guarded about people stealing things from them. And so the first thing that you want to do is create, if you want them in here, which is also not necessarily true. Some people do choose to stay out there for perceived freedom and, not under the scrutiny of any kind of authority or benefactors and stuff like that. So if the ones who decided that they want to come into shelter in your space, they'll be carrying a whole bunch of their own worldly belongings, and storage becomes important, for any space that they will be privatizing. So the person, one thing that you're missing in the typology of spaces right now, I think Olivia pointed out a really good point. You're either opaque or you're transparent. There's nothing in between. So you're either seen or not seen, but you have none of those in between, maybe seen if I feel like it, maybe not seen if I feel like it. So the threshold between spaces, I think for the mission of your project, needs to have a greater degree of gradient, right? So for example, in my generation, we would talk about Herman Hertzberger's senior housing, where he chose to put the Dutch door, the idea about the Dutch door, the door that is in two, right? So if I don't feel like talking to you, my door is shut. If I feel like I'm just going to talk to you, but I don't want you to come in, I open the top of the door, right? I mean, this is a simple device, but it demonstrates the idea of a gradient, right? If I want my pet to play with your pet, I keep the top closed and I open the bottom and the dogs and cats come in. So, and then before that, before they're in the actual my privatized space and the public space, there's still a zone of negotiation, right? That maybe I can put some of my belongings there that would not be stolen, and maybe you can come and meet me there. So you're not in the public, but you're not in my house, right? That type of thing. So the gradient aspect become important. The idea of the old-fashioned term called defensible space become important, that, they can see who's coming in, who are, have ill intention, and they can defend themselves. And there's a zone for that. So I would imagine that there's a thickness to every single aspect of what would be considered wall in this building. And maybe instinctively you're doing that with that screen. You've created this kind of shaded zone. Maybe it doesn't have to be as glitzy. Maybe it doesn't even have to be a wall. Maybe, sometimes it's just a matter of the section raising or dropping that would do that. And I think that, you will begin to get there. A lot of times when we do these type of projects, you might be, and you feel like a methodical person. So you almost want to take typologies of spaces, just the localized condition of going from the room to the public space, indoor to the outdoor, and you study that spectrum and you design that spectrum more in detail, like the way that you were thinking about, the renderings and stuff shows a certain degree of understanding of, stuff that has to happen in the space to actually be occupied. Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annie.
That was really helpful.
I think, unfortunately, we'll have to move on unless somebody has some last comments. Okay, thank you so
Maybe
much.
just something very quickly. I think what is important for your project is that you are also thinking about how this building communicates throughout the city. How do people know that this is a place they can come to? Yeah, and I mean, it's not only a visual thing, or it's a kind of word of mouth or something like that, but it's something that is sometimes in a different way inviting. Yeah, and I'm looking at the roofscape of this building. I'm thinking, well, could that roof be more inviting? I'm thinking maybe from other buildings or roofs of other buildings, one could see this building, and how does it communicate to us? Yeah, and or to somebody unhoused that would consider this and so on. These are sort of those other things that one cannot really draw in a plan, but that need to be thought about.
Yeah, I would seriously consider not enclosing the ground floor. Because just even the temperature of what is underneath the roof of the building is already different than temperature on the street. And, you know, that's already a threshold, you know, just even things that you can feel on your skin is already a threshold. So you don't really need a whole lot of glass and walls and doors and all this stuff. And that might clear up that kind of wall, you know, so people can filter in much easier. And that's your first invitation to your building. Make it as porous as possible.
Okay, thank you.
We'll have one more student. We're gonna run a little bit over. If one of the jury just needs to leave, I totally understand. But if you can stay an extra 15 minutes, that would be appreciated. So David would be the next student.
Good afternoon. My name is David Sierra, and I am proposing a library and a community center on the perimeter of Skid Row. Annie, I thought it was very interesting what you said about us not controlling how the user uses the space and, you know, having that social impact. But I'd like to propose that the program might be able to achieve that. And
David,
so that,
can you start moderating?
oh yes. Sorry. Okay. So like I said, I was proposing a community center and a library, and I propose that the program in conjunction will work to transcend socioeconomic status and barriers and therefore simplify human interactions. The objective is that the program and the site will act as a gateway to the community and bring people into the neighborhood, as well as aiding those trying to leave poverty behind. The site is located at the intersection of 5th and Central and is a direct result of two distinct urban grids. And what I liked is that it provided a unique opportunity to design a building in the round, in which I express each side equivalently with relationships to one another. And there's this sort of ambiguity as to where the front of the building is. So here on the site plan, you could see that you enter my building through the interior courtyard or through 5th Avenue. So my urban design strategy and massing strategy is inspired by Terrigani's Casa del Fazio in Italy. That building reflects a pinnacle of strict rational geometry, and I wanted to challenge myself to resolve such an awkward geometry in a very organized manner. So I placed that courtyard typology on the site, and then the grid kind of dissects it, placing the courtyard now on the exterior. And then on the ground floor, I carved space in order to activate it. Structurally speaking, I extrude the vertices of the site in order to provide lateral support. I then bridge these elements in order to get the necessary spans. So my apertures reveal a change in section, and it's also a change in materiality, because like as has been discussed, these people's lives are always on display. Therefore, I wanted to add a sense of privacy, and these parts of the facade are profiled glass with insulation in between, which means that you don't get a clear view of the outside. It's private. However, on these little moments on the facade, I provide transparent glass in order to connect the user to the city. My program is organized with between servant and served spaces, and my servant spaces are located at the 90-degree intersection, so centrally to the served spaces. and at the most acute vertex of the site with the fire stair. And I have a community center on the ground floor and a library sandwiched in between another community center space above. And by community center, I mean these are sports framing the library. So on the ground level, I wanted to achieve what Hans Eberlings refers to as the middle ground. And this type of informal public space is ubiquitous in Europe, but it's actually lacking in Los Angeles. So on the ground floor, I have like this little bookstore, a court, and they act as a threshold between the street and the building. They also are able to open and close in order for security reasons, because it's a very, it's not the safest site, and also to allow more people to come to the site. Here you can see a small mezzanine that overlooks both of these spaces, making a visual connection between the interior and the exterior, and how that space just completely opens up. I'll briefly discuss the plans because I'm aware you guys could read these, but on the second floor, I have a children's library and a cyber center, which through this grand stair connects sectionally to the youth library above. And like I said, my apertures reveal a change in section. These large apertures on this corner allow light into a rather dark corner of the library and activates this space. So it's more welcoming and like for people and the youth to hang out. Here's a view of the cyber center, and you can see there's two trusses. Later you'll see the larger scale. This is the truss at a more compressed scale. On the fourth floor, I have administration and adult stacks and a study room and a conference room. And on the floor above, I have perhaps the most useful space for the community of Skid Row with an abundant locker rooms and showers. I thought it was really important to provide them with dignity because being clean makes you feel better about yourself and it's empowering. So that's why I provided such an abundant space for showers and locker rooms to help the current community of Skid Row. On my sixth floor, I have a volleyball court and the basketball court. And on the rooftop, there's more space for sports and outdoor sports. Here you could see the different scales and truss. So this is the smaller compressed truss, and here's the larger truss. And on one of these apertures, you could see how the glass is stepped back from the facade in order to give it transparency in contrast to the opaque glass of the rest of the building to connect it again to the city. And this basketball court also has that mezzanine that connects the building in section. Here again, out of those mezzanines and those connections, and showing how the apertures pretty much allow light in and they're connected to a change in section. All the apertures are connected to a change in section. With this section, I wanted to explore the building and how it would be a very narrow building. So here's that different scale and truss at the narrowest point of the building. And here are the elevations. Again, reflecting how in these openings, there's either a change in section behind or the stairs. And I would like to just really briefly go back to the top because in my research, I found a really beautiful program known as the Homeless World Cup, which organizes a World Cup for the homeless population. And it's interesting because 94% of the people that participated positively changed their lives. 83% of them actually improved relationships with their families and friends, and 77% changed their lives significantly. And that Homeless World Cup aims to change the perceptions and attitudes towards people who are experiencing homelessness. And basically, I feel like my building could foster like such a a competition with like enough spaces for training, for locker rooms, for storage, and for people to come and interact. Thank you.
I appreciate the hopeful.
Go ahead, Annie.
Yeah, I was saying I appreciate the kind of positive hopefulness of this project. As you were talking about it, I keep thinking, you know, of experiences I have at Seattle Public Library and the Central Library downtown of seeing the mix between homeless population using the library in conjunction with the public. There was a very big controversy, and I think at every public libraries, at some point they kick out people. You know, there are many rules, like 40 rules of how you have to behave in the library for the homeless population. You cannot appear to be asleep. No, that was one thing that I found was kind of ridiculous. But, you know, I think that, you know, there's a generosity in your project that I appreciate. And I keep thinking about that we have to study this building on a 24-hour clock, because the shelters kick you out about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and you can't go back there till 10, right? So there's that whole time of the day where if you're gonna come here, you know, the thing that the homeless miss a lot is they have no address, you know, and I always thought one of the program that you could have for a kind of assisted kind of situation like this is to give them a whole lot of mailboxes that has this address, because you can't even apply for a job if you don't have an address, right? So that's many of the services that you can apply to, where you're going to have mail sent to, right? So that's one of the key things. And it could be a daily ritual of coming in and just collecting mail or accessing all kinds of services. Every public library is you know, giving services to recent immigrants, you know, and to a certain degree, homeless situation. One of the really interesting and very current program for public libraries is maker spaces, you know, access to 3D printing machines and things like that. So of having people access technology to a point where it can be a kind of marketable skill. So there's a lot of learning possibility in libraries that the homeless people read. Homeless people need to get on the internet. And when they do, they don't necessarily want to look at each other. So a lot of the libraries where, you know, you have a bank of computers and people are just facing the screen is in fact more comfortable than if you're just having them look at each other, you know, like you're working in a collaborative group in an office or something like that. So to those degrees of details, there's a lot to kind of get into the psychology of how to make people more comfortable. There's a small, I think that your windows are an area that could really be explored. I like thinking about that triangular staircase going up to the landing where you're occupying and having those 2 windows near the tip of it. And so I would study the potential of those typically unused circulation space that become gathering spaces. The U-channel glass itself, just a hint, is structural. So I'm a little bit concerned about looking at your top right view of your board where the profiled glass is in the front and then there's still a kind of truss grid behind it. It's really not necessary, just FYI. You know, whereas in the interior, you can see that there are trusses. It just seems, I don't know, there's something about it that is kind of too heavy and complicated in that one. I wish it could be a little bit more transparent. But yeah, I think it's a really good effort. And I think the geometry and the places where, you know, the program is allocated and stuff seems all reasonable. Yeah, kind of good set of presentation.
Yes, I mean, I second that. I think there is a consistent body of work here. I think there is there's plenty of goodwill and rationale about how you display and organize the thing. I'm not sure how you. I think the triangularity of the site is in itself a very interesting challenge. I mean, that's actually probably might lead you to play more with the verticality. So it's having this kind of paradox of as an object being on display, because it's having only 3 sides, not 4, but they're like overexposed from every direction. And still you manage to make them really, in a way, hermetical visually, but actually quite welcoming for the people to go there with discretion and intimacy, as it was mentioned. I'm not totally sure about the exoskeleton strategy. I mean, sure, why not? I think you have already quite a lot of things to bite in terms of items. The set of plans and sections are compelling, pretty solid. I'm not sure as well intellectually how you relate to Terrani and the Casa del Fascio. I mean, to me, there is more like the triangular, urban, exceptional triangular site conditions, meaning flat iron building. That is in itself quite of a challenge to address, and I think you're doing pretty well actually with dealing with this kind of paradox of being a object and the kind of urban object, and on the other side the porosity to make it kind of intimate.
Yeah, okay, so I'm agreeing with everything what is being said here, so I don't need to repeat this. I would like to hear a little bit more, David. How do you imagine, I mean, I would have liked to see this building also really in use, and I was saying it earlier at another project at the other class, that we are often having these incredibly clean collages and renderings and so on, and it all looks so perfect, and it's so new architecture. Yeah, it's all so new. And one of these things that we know about downtown LA, about this whole area, is that it is actually all quite gritty. And this is not because of the people who are using the building, but it is simply because, we are living in extremely polluted times, and we're carrying a lot of dirt around all the time. And we are a lot of people on this planet, and so I'm always really looking at that. I want to see the outside in the inside. I want to, see it when it is already some 10 years old, and people have started to say maybe, we need, excuse me, we need a couple of plants in here, or we want to actually do something with the walls, or, and you start having posters on the walls or announcements and so on, because there still is a sort of analog world and not only the digital one, and all of that. Yeah, and especially because you were showing these sports areas. Yeah, that is something that will be beautifully used. Yeah, and then it becomes really a people's place. Yeah. And I would like to encourage you to think that a little bit further. Also, if when you were maybe working on your portfolio or something like that, maybe there are some 2 or 3 more visualizations in there that could actually really bring it into some context. Yeah, it's also something where you probably think much more in film terms, where you really show the reality of a project. That is something that we keep forgetting in architectural visualization. It's all a little bit too perfect. And I could imagine, because I really like the way you're speaking about this, I like the way you're speaking about the users of the building, that you can actually do that, and would probably also be inspired to do that. So I hope this is somehow still going to happen. It's a beautiful project, really congratulations, and fantastic. And I'm also saying one last sentence because I really do have to leave. So I'm really sorry, but I have to jump out of that a little earlier.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Great.
Nice
Thank
See
meeting
you all
Karen.
soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Karen. Hey, David, I want to get back to that thing that you called me on, which is like I said, you can't really design it exactly like for the reaction of the people. But to a certain degree you can. And I'm focusing on that basketball court rendering right now, where you're straight on, yeah, that one right there. So if you just, I'm extending the conversation that Karen was just talking about, the use of these imagery to speculate, right? So first of all, let's think about what is the temperature in that room, in that court right now?
Pretty warm, I'd say.
A little warm. Okay, why are you saying it's warm?
The yellowish tint to it.
The what?
Like the yellowish tint to it.
Okay, so it depicts a certain warmth and stuff like that. It might be airless because you're using channel glass and there's no operable windows. Now play a game, play a really rigorous game, not just this guy like practicing shooting the hoop, but someone has a pickup game here and the balls are being thrown everywhere and stuff like that. Where are the balls? Where's the ball hitting?
Glass.
Right. So there's some issue here that like if you want to take on the challenge, take on every aspect of the challenge. If I'm up there in the mezzanine looking down and the errant ball flew over there and I happen to catch it, I have to come back over here and now I have to throw it down to the players. At that moment, you have made a connection for me and the player down in the court, right? So, which is actually good, right? So like you have to kind of almost play some kind of scenario in your head and activate these kind of renderings. And now the next thing you do is you come back to another space right before this space and check that out, right? Because architecture is kind of interesting. Architecture is a composition of systems, right? We know that. That's the kind of architectural thinking. But architecture is also this unknown experience of creating that moment, right? And that moment is never, it's only occurs in a split second because somebody moved, or the sun changes, or the temperature changes, and the whole thing is not the same anymore. And if we move our body just 10 inches to the left, that's not the same experience anymore. So that's the kind of really interesting thing that of the control and out of control of architecture that keeps all of the old people here working, because it's mysterious and it's exciting. So, the way to test the waters about how do these spaces really work is, I think Karen used the word film, movie, right? Is to really learn how to travel through your projects and remember what you saw. Part of it, the rational side of you is picking up all the language of the system, which is now the way that you can cohesively bring that kind of material and language system throughout the entire building, and it makes it like one building, one total experience. Then the other thing is to really get into more the perceptual understanding of the spaces. And for that, you have to study interiors. Like you have to get a kind of connoisseurship of what it means to make a room, and that's outside of your education right now. But I would encourage everyone, since this is the last project, that you are delivering this interior experience, even though you're an architect. You are an interior designer, not in the way that you think about HGTV interior decorating, okay? Everything, every aspect of it, the volume, the material use, right? There's a lot going on in there, and it's very different from the outside. Like a lot of us in architecture school create objects, right? We look at the model, like bird's eye view and everything. But what we're delivering is really this, which you're showing us. And that most of the time we don't understand yet, like during your school year. So I want to encourage you, because you're already kind of further along, and all of you guys have a certain degree of facility to how to do space planning, imagines systems of structures, have a kind of somewhat of a consistent language that you can apply, have an integration of problem solving together with design, but ultimately you're delivering this experience. And with that, you know, the aspects of what I would call secondary elements of architecture, primary being wall, floor, ceiling, you know, all this stuff. Secondary meaning like, you know, for lack of better description, sound, temperature, ventilation, you know, the haptic environment, how do things feel? All of that, you know, is part of the deliverable, and somehow you got to get into it. So I just want to encourage all of you guys to really begin to understand how to work with those things. Very interesting project Sana did for Grace Farms out in the East Coast. The basketball court was sunken, and then the clear story was above ground. And when you approach this basketball building, you're looking down at a game like you're at some kind of nosebleed territory seats. But it allows all the walls to be very sturdy for any kind of ball action, but it creates a very spectacular way of watching the game too. So I think that, yeah, I think your section has a lot more that it can, that you can squeeze a lot more blood out of your sections as well.
What was the project again? Oh, you're muted. Annie, you're muted.
Sana, you know, the S-A, is it S-A-N-A-A or S-A-A-N-A-A? I don't know. And the project is Grace, G-R-A-C-E Farms.
Thank you.
There's a basketball building that you might like.
Okay. Any last comments, or otherwise we will move to the break, and you guys are relieved.
Very relieved, yeah.
Relief, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I can say that, you know, it's I mean, it's great to see how, you know, considering the between quote context, you know, how we as instructor, but especially students, have been working for the last more than 1 year. I think we'll have to meditate on that in a few years from now, because I'm quite impressed how people got involved by sometimes being on the other side of the planet and very isolated from, you know, immediate comments or critique, or, you know, much more interaction than we can have. Obviously, I mean, impossible to have the same situation than when we have studio on campus. So I think, you know, it's quite impressive to see how in adversity people are just putting the stuff here, and same for the instructor, by the way. So I think, you know, you guys deserve kind of a break now, whatever having a break means. I don't know if like you can go and get a drink at Manuela to see what is the urban out there. It is open, by the way, I can testify on that. But actually, yeah, congratulations for, you know, putting all that in adversity. And, you know, you guys, we are all surprisingly resilient. I mean, we even surprise ourselves retroactively. So I think, you know, kudos for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I you know, earlier on we played a game with Ben Ball about where he would have installed some artwork. I wanted to play, like, I want to leave you with a one episode of this game, but I'm going to ask Olivia and Ben to participate, which is in this project, if you can only go to one space because you're out of time, but you want to go to that space, Olivia, what space would you go to in this project?
Oh my gosh, I'm like, I think it's totally on the last project, you mean?
This one that we just saw, yeah.
This one.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious to see what is the protocol and the process of entering in the crack in this triangle.
Yeah.
There. And how I find my way. It's just like crossing from the adjacent streets and trying to see how I get into that.
How to get into the building, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Ben, where would you go in this project?
I would want to explore the underside of the truss. So I'd want to see, you've gone to great lengths to hold up part of this building and let it span over a kind of street-wide zone. I want to know, you went to, and you've advertised that on the outside of the building with very dramatic diagonal grid there. So I want to know what all the fuss is about and go underneath that. Right.
Right there.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I think we're playing this game because it's like, there is a kind of very significant moment that you have created where people are gravitated towards, and it deserves to be studied. Why are we wanting to do that? What is it that caused that? And then that is your main dish, right? But you're offering your main dish at the beginning of your meal. How are you going to sustain the rest of the meal when you go through the rest of the building?
That's a good point. Yeah.
I want to leave you with that. Yeah.
That was a fun game. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to thank all of you guys for coming. I mean, it's always so generous of all your time and being so thoughtful about all the projects. It's so hard to always, get into these projects every half hour, completely new thing. So thank you so much. And
thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You guys have a great weekend.
Thanks very much.
So much.
Take care, guys. Nice
Bye.
Okay, so we have a short break, and we'll go back to the other room. I think, what are we at? We're gonna go to a room we have not been yet. We're gonna go to room 4.
Yes, room 4.
13 minutes. Okay. All right. Good job, David and Darius.
Thank you.
See you guys later. Yes, room 4, George. Thanks.